Let's jump into some of the fun topics or whatnot that I have. First off, spring game. I know that you were actually in attendance out there. How did that go? Talk to me about the atmosphere for you there when you got to get back on the field, because you went to the one last year as well, right?
So I missed last year,
Okay.
when Baker came back and I was kicking myself. So
Oh,
I made it a priority this year because, I was, like I said, everybody came back. I was looking on Facebook last year, but, like I was mentioning with kids, man, sometimes we got to divide and conquer. I think my wife might have been in Dallas. I was in Tulsa at a game that weekend, and so ended up missing the entire weekend. So this year I made an effort to not only be at the spring game, but I went to, so Thursday night, they had a little event for all the alumni there at the casino in Norman. And so I went out to that. Then obviously Friday was Kyler Murray's statue reveal there at the Omni downtown. And so I went to that as well. So I blocked off, for once. I was like, okay, hey, this is going to be our priority, even for my son, because we missed almost, I think we missed every OU game last season, because we always had something on Saturdays. And most
right.
of OU's games are, those 11 o'clocks, and we're somewhere playing basketball or soccer at that time. So made it a priority to get out there. And then made it out to the spring game. I hated it because it was a little bit cooler. Like Friday was nice, the weather. Sunday was great. Saturday was a little chilly, and we had gotten out there pretty early too. We got out there around 10 o'clock, just because there was a little bit more alumni stuff going on prior to the game. So I wanted to be involved with that. And then, got to, and obviously I think Kyler's thing was around 11:30 or so.
Right.
So there was already people all over the place. And so I'm sure it was similar, if not even more, the previous year with Baker. But from an environment standpoint, even with the weather and it being, pretty chilly out there, people came up, people showed up. And so that was good to see. I mean, it was, like I said, I think a lot of people ended up leaving around halftime. Us ourselves, we even left at halftime, just because the kids were a little restless and chilly, being there. We had been there since 10, but I think we were there till probably almost 4 o'clock or so. So from 10 to 4, we were out there, and like I said, there was thousands and thousands of people out there. So it's always good to get back out there. And like I mentioned, I just hadn't got out there a whole lot in the past seasons just because of kids sports. So it's really nice to see a lot of the former teammates that I hadn't seen. Some of the guys I hadn't seen since we played 20 years ago.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it totally makes sense on that, and I totally get you with the kids thing. That was my son played soccer, and my daughter did as well before she decided to retire in high school. And your Saturdays are booked up. That's basically your life. So I'm watching football games on my phones with other parents at the games. We over here sharing, like, you see that? Did you see that play? We over here talking through it, and so yeah, it keeps you completely occupied throughout the fall, especially since you said like your twin girls play soccer. You don't have a Saturday to yourself for a while, but it's good you made it out this year.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So you got it to be there up until half. I know that, with the new regime change, we've had all the changes that came through for Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley leaving, and then you had Brent Venables comes in, bringing in Jeff Lebby, who was at Oklahoma when you were there, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So you've got relationships with just about this whole staff, which is actually pretty awesome now that I think about it. Talk to me about how you feeling about this staff coming in this year. I know last year wasn't what we wanted, what we hoped for at being 6 and 7, but do you see light at the end of the tunnel with this new regime coming in, especially since you're kind of partial because you know them?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, for sure. So the pieces are there, right? And then, once we brought BV back, and then Lebby came back, Joe John's already on the staff, DeMarco's on the staff. Who else? I know there's a couple more I'm missing because Schmitty is back. Lance Mitchell is on the staff. Rufus Alexander's on the staff, and so this is my squad. I mean, this is 2002 to 2006 squad. And so one was happy that BV got the nod and got to step in. Hated that the season went the way that it did. Especially for BV. It just is what it is. There's a lot of dynamics you got to deal with now, especially when you're talking about the transfer portal and getting guys in and all that. So completely understand, kind of getting things up and rolling. But hate that, Venables had to kind of start off as bad and as rocky as we did, because I know he's a good coach. I think he'll get a chance to prove that here this season. I think the pieces are starting to come in place. And again, this is a whole new era, a whole new time. And you're talking about the transfer portal and NIL and things you got to deal with and trying to assemble a team. It's not like it used to be where you could kind of build it from the ground up. Right now, you got to build it through the transfer portal. Obviously, you still want to get great recruits in as well, but not all the time do they stick around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so I think for sure, obviously Lebby, he's been successful all over the place. Out there with UCF with Hype. I know he was in Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. Obviously, they're at Baylor. With Art Briles. And so he's got a track record of success and doing well, as well as the other coaches there on that staff. So BV knows how to win. It's funny because everybody wanted him out or was, get rid of BV right here. What was that? Probably 15 years ago now.
Yes.
Then he jumps over to Clemson and just straight dominates. And everyone's like, come back. Right. And we were having our defensive woes. And so, be careful what you wish for. And so now we got him back, right? We got our guy. We got an OU guy. And so again, he's from a personal standpoint as well, the way he relates with the recruits, the way he relates with his team. There's not a better guy to represent the University of Oklahoma and build this program back to where we're used to being at. So 100%. Feel confident in this staff, young staff. Again, a lot of guys that I played with, and a lot of guys that have a lot of experience as well. So I'm excited. I think there's kind of really only one way to go from last season, and that's up. And hopefully we can kind of start building some momentum here as we push to enter that SEC.
Ooh. Those the words, SEC. And so we got former OU quarterback Paul Thompson here talking OU football. And so let's go dive a little bit more into the actual game itself, especially at the beginning. We've got quarterback Dillon Gabriel out there who he had a really good season his first year here. The injury kind of made things a little bit rocky for him at the TCU game. And then, of course, at the same time, it felt like to me Lebby pulled him back on the reins a little bit because we recognized that there wasn't really any depth at the quarterback position, especially once the old regime left. The cupboard was bare. We're kind of starting from scratch. And so then you bring in the recruit. Jackson Arnold comes in. And so now I'm terrified personally that we're going to have fans start chanting for him like they did the Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler situation. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But I want to get your thoughts as a former quarterback. When you saw Gabriel out there, not only this past season, but even going into the spring game with him and Jackson Arnold, what jumped out to you about him being able to be sufficient enough to help us win some games this coming season?
Yeah, so Dillon's a solid quarterback, right? So I think we've probably gotten a little bit spoiled here at Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
Our track record is pretty nice when it comes to quarterbacks. So, we just did back-to-back Heisman ceremonies, the last 2 years at our spring game. So that just doesn't happen anywhere else you go. And so, you even look at, Caleb Williams, right? He transferred, but he was 3, right? He was another Lincoln Riley. That'd have been, another one. But
and Hurts was like number 2 in Heisman Trophy votings the year.
Hurts was right there too, right? So Dillon Gabriel is a phenomenal quarterback, right? So he's not at the level of those other guys, but that's rare air as well when you're talking about his predecessors. So Dylan's a great quarterback, has great command of the offense, has great command of the huddle. He's got respect from his teammates, and he goes out there and he makes plays. Right, he's smart. He wasn't, he had plenty of games under his belt prior to coming here to Oklahoma. And so, and then, experience with Levy as well. And so just having that grasp of the offense has really helped him out. And so I have no questions about Dylan Gabriel being able to lead us even to a championship. But, even let's just get to the Big 12 championship first, right, before we start talking past that. But, winning some games, being on the winning side of just a regular season record, and then Big 12 championships and stuff like that. So Dylan Gabriel can definitely do that. Jackson Arnold obviously is the flashy and the next thing, right? So that's where we always get in a problem as fans. Is it's always the next guy, right? We always want to see the next guy, right? Because their potential is we haven't unlocked it. We don't know what it is, right? So we haven't seen them, and so you allow your imagination to get going, and that sometimes can get you in trouble when it comes to, maybe putting a guy out there too soon, maybe not putting him out there in the right, situations. And it can be counterproductive as well when you're talking about, us as fans looking at a situation and not knowing the in-depth practices and film study and all that. And, yeah, he's a great prospect, but we don't know where he is yet on the collegiate level because we haven't seen him, whereas the coaching staff has. And so we get into this where the fans want to force something to happen, which could be detrimental to Dylan Gabriel's psyche. And so the guy that we have on the field that's supposed to be leading our team, right, is hearing boos or, chants from the stands on every pass that he underthrows or overthrows, right? And so I dealt with that very briefly, just because I was, after we lost to TCU, our first game, I was benched. So it wasn't like there was a couple of games there where I was hearing it. But even that game, first game of the season, you could hear stuff in the stands because Rhett Bomar was the Jackson Arnold of, 2004, right? Or 2005. And so, it does something to you too when you come out and Bomar comes in and the crowd goes wild, right? It's like, man, that's tough after what I've put in, what I've done here at this university, to hear that. So I'd say for the fans, for sure, we got a potentially, really, really good quarterback in Jackson Arnold, but let the system kind of play itself out. Trust Levy, trust BV on how they go about rolling that out, and maybe they make him let him sit and watch. Or I know nowadays you can still get some playing time and still redshirt, so maybe you get some games in early in some of the blowouts, and then we go from there. So two great quarterbacks, or I'd say a really, really good quarterback and a potentially good quarterback. But yeah, to have at least some of that, a little bit of buffer where we didn't have that last year, and it really exposed itself in that Texas game, when we had to go wildcat or, split, our quarterback out wide, and just now we're playing 10 on 11. And so
it's true.
I think we're in a much, much, much better situation. And not only that, but Dylan's got a year under his belt and, here at the University of Oklahoma as well.
No, that's a good point, and I forgot that was that year in 2005 was the year that Bomar was basically was behind you, because he redshirted in 2004, if I'm correct.
Right. So I redshirted my third year because Jason White got a 6 year of eligibility. Right. So I played as a true freshman and a true sophomore. So I backed up Nate Hibble. We ended up going on, win the Big 12 championship that year. Went to the Rose Bowl, won the Rose Bowl. The next year was our was Sugar Bowl year, and so that was the year we lost. Was that the year? Yeah, we lost the national champion, or we lost the Big 12 championship to Kansas State.
Played LSU still, yeah.
Played LSU still, lost that one, a close one, and then so the next year, 2004-ish, Jason White got a 6 year of eligibility. Right, so he'd just come off, Heisman Trophy, just tore his ACL the first year, or my freshman year, came back, Heisman Trophy, all that. And then I was like, man, I'm going to take this year to redshirt. So it was kind of unorthodox that I sat out middle of my career, but I wanted to have at least 2 years to play after that. So after Jason left that year, that was a USC year. So we won the Big 12 championship. We were supposed to be, one of the best teams ever. Ended up losing, getting smoked in the national championship to USC. And then 05 is when I got this.
Does that game actually exist though?
No, it doesn't. It never happened, right? So
never happened.
Never happened. Thanks to Reggie Bush on that one. So 05 season, then 06 is when I finished up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so, having the experience with the Bomar situation, I remember that. I remember looking at that like, why are we doing this to Paul? Why don't we just let Paul play? And then, of course, the TCU game, that was in the era of the Gary Patterson surge at TCU. And then that's when we actually realized at that point that Gary had Bob Stoops' number. It was like one of the coaches that had Stoops' number, and he would give us hell for years on, and so that scenario is something that I'm really hoping we don't see play out again, because like you said, it messes with the psyche. And kudos to you. I think that was my favorite part about you as a player was you took that in stride. You moved to wide receiver, started doing some things, and then of course Bomar did almost as expected in some capacities, got himself in trouble, had to leave, and then boom, what happened? He just plugged you right back in. Went 11-3 the next season. So obviously we knew that the talent was there and the ability was there. We just had to surround you and everybody with the tools needed to be successful. So, okay.